Hi, I'm Arlie. Welcome to my channel. My son told me that I'm supposed to show my face, so here I am showing my face. Here's my face. And now let me show you my video. Hi, it's Arlie. I'm going to do a sketchbook flip through. I'm going to do each of these books separately with a different timestamp so you can skip ahead or skip back, or just skip if that's what you like to do. My first book is this book that I made for myself before I went traveling, and then I didn't have the time that I thought I was going to have to work in here, so I've ended up using it at home. These were the colors I took on my trip. This is Fabriano watercolor paper. Well, I can't turn the screen, so you have to turn your head. Here, I'll help you a little bit. It was one of my first attempts at gouache with colored pencil on top for, this is basically urban sketching. It's meant to be loose with writing on top to capture the mood. This is me in the hotel mirror. I think the rest are on the right-hand page. This is from a photograph of a really misty, cold Lake Erie. I learned something on this one. The graphite pencil, let's see, can I get the right, there we go. Graphite, which is your regular school pencil, shows up shiny. And that's when I realized I need to make sure I carry a black colored pencil with me. That if I don't want it to be shiny, I need to use black colored pencil, which is basically wax, not graphite. This is just gouache. This is also just gouache. I don't know why I turned the book this way. Gouache is kind of a chalky, thick watercolor. This is from memory, and this is when I learned I really don't do well with just from memory, that I really do need reference photos, but I still played around. I did colored pencil on top of gouache. And then this is using up the rest of the colors in the pan. I just use a big metal pan for mixing, and gouache, you can put water on the dried up paint and it will reactivate. It comes out a little more grainy, sort of. Most people prefer using gouache fresh from the tube or jelly gouache. It arrives wet. It has a consistency of mayonnaise, actually, jelly gouache. But anyway, sometimes I like the colors that are in the pan, so I just decided to play and just work on techniques. And so I still masked it off with washi tape or paper tape and made it a composition. I'm looking for colored pencil. I think this is mostly gouache with a tiny bit of colored pencil just to highlight a couple of spots. I like colored pencil because it adds definition, and I'm more of a drawer than a painter. I've spent more years in my life drawing than painting. So I'm more comfortable with drawing, and it feels sort of like a finishing touch. And then here I thought I'd just play with different thumbnails of the same photograph. This is an old photograph, and so I used the colors from the old photograph, and I think it came out pretty well. And then I used a contradictory color to define the mountains and stuff. In a way, that is how you see things. There's this, I don't know what it's called, this effect when you look at something and your eyes move the tiniest bit, and then you start to see sort of an outline of the object in the opposite color. I'm sure there's a name for it, and I've probably learned it in school 100 times, but anyway. And then also I drew the lines of the fence in with the pencil instead of trying to paint them, because I'm still not very delicate with my paint, and they would have ended up looking like thick lines. This was right when when Russia attacked Ukraine. I went through Google Street View, but then there's also something called, I can't remember it, but I'll add it on the top of this video, where random images come up, and that's kind of fun. You can sort of travel, armchair travel, and it's really good for urban sketching from home. And I liked this house, but I liked the teal colored fence in front of this house. It's just, I just sort of took Google Street View down an alley and kept taking screenshots until I finally found one that I wanted to draw. And what's nice about, or paint, what I like about colored pencils is adding these little lines like this one. And let's see if I get it in close. The branches, I guess this would be the trunk or the, branches. That I don't need to do them with paint. I like adding these little tiny details with a colored pencil. Colored pencil and watercolor or a colored pencil and gouache work really well together. This is from an old black and white photo, and I wanted to imagine what the dresses looked like, and I added one of them in colored pencil. This one's all gouache with colored pencil stripes, and this one is, I did the little shapes in gouache, and then I added lines with colored pencil. But I guess right now I'm sort of trying to figure out what my style is, and I think that's part of it. This is from an old photograph of myself. This is a black sweater with the sun shining on my shoulder, so it looked purple. So anyway, but I did kind of the back as Matisse style because that's what I had been looking at the time. This was from memory, but a recent memory, like the night before, and the moon was actually behind this tree, but I'm still not that good at that. And then the building is here, so it was shining its lights, from the inside out on these trees. And I just wanted to continue working every day, and I couldn't think of what to do, so I did it anyway, which is a Ben Folds song. This is my grandmother, and in the photograph, her mouth was open as if she was saying something, but I couldn't get that detail in, so I left her with a closed mouth. This is from a bouquet. I really like this. This one made me really happy to paint, draw, whatever. This was another Google Street View, Poland, a pond in Poland. This is from my trip in Santa Fe. I was really struck by the pink building with the pink clouds. This is from Santa Fe. These are from photographs, so it gives me time to compose, and they have a little more of a tight look to them than the ones that I do en plein air. This is from a photograph, and then what I realized while I was working on this, that I really liked the wrought iron details in front of the window, so I immediately did a large version of this. So this actually was more like a study. And I'm glad I did this study, because then when I did the larger painting, I was already acquainted with some of the shapes and details, and I knew what I wanted to change, and I knew what I wanted to keep. So self-portrait, I got a little messy on the face, and at some point you can't keep working on it, so I had to just leave it, but I did capture my expression fairly well. Another one of that barn. It has a lot of the things that I need to work on: sky, perspective, foliage, shadows, shadows between, the same color that's in sunlight and in shadow, and then also foreground. So this photo has a lot of the things that I need to work on it. And I remember the moment, and I like the way it's composed, so I have this photograph and I just pull it out sometimes and paint it again. This is from a photo from my childhood home, and I have fond memories, and so it's hard for me to even look at this photo objectively, because I have emotions about this area, but I think I did pretty well catching the sunlight filtering through, and I still want to learn how to work on foreground. This is from a peony that I grew. I photographed and then I painted. I painted this a couple of times because I really wanted to understand how to show the layering of the inside of the flower. This was a copy. I was feeling really uninspired one day, and so I just chose someone else's work. I contacted them and asked if I could copy. I mean, of course you can copy if you're just doing it into your sketchbook, but I asked if I could show it online. And Pegrigo on Instagram was instantaneous. She just replied immediately and said, yes, please, yay. And she was really excited. I didn't do the best job, but it did help me get out of a funk that I was in. These are white geraniums I have on my back deck. And this is this funny laundry basket that I turned upside down, and I use it as a plant stand. And I thought I was going to draw it with colored pencils, but I ended up painting it, and it turned out okay. My son looked at the photo and immediately said, I know what that is. So I guess that's good. So I still have a few more pages left, and then I might go back and work on the left page. This is a stillman and birn. Stillman and birn. Sketchbook that my friend Amy gave me. And I like hot press paper better. It's smooth. And I like white better than cream, probably because of my background as a graphic artist. And I've always envied Amy's book because she does color studies and notes, and she really uses it as a workbook, and I still can't get myself to do that. I still want to do sort of completed finished pieces, and so I'm just going to go with that. This was Shada Campbell. Look her up on YouTube, and she has a lot of watercolor ideas, and this was one of this. I did this in gouache, but I wanted to start the book in a cheerful, fun way, so I used her idea, but I painted with my own colors, and I did some of my own patterns, and I copied some of her patterns. And this time I'm trying to work on both sides of the page. I have a book of photographs of body parts and hands and naked people and stuff, poses for artists. This is way before the internet, so I pulled that out and I did a bunch of different hands. And this is from a black and white photo of my mom. I didn't like it, so the next day I tried again to capture. I made her face kind of too squinched, and so I was trying to open it up. And I was still trying to do art every day, so I was doing art no matter whether I was enjoying it or inspired or not. And I ended up, I realized that my thing is that I always like the last thing that I did. So I did this on the 8th of April. I liked it on the 9th until I did something on the 9th. So that's just how I am. And so these aren't consecutive because I work in between about 5 different sketchbooks, depending on whether I'm going to do a wide layout, whether I want it landscape or portrait or small or large or whatever. I have a box of plastic toys, and I really like tigers, so I pulled one out, and this is one of my cans that I had pens and brushes in, and this is my paint tin. So I just super quickly set this up and did this. From a black and white photo of my grandmother. I ran out of time. I would have spent a little more time on her hands, but it's almost sort of gestural. You get what she's doing. This is from a memory that I tried to photograph. I tried to photograph the light on the light behind the trees, the morning light behind the trees. And by the time I took the photo, the sky had turned blue. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking. So I sort of made it sort of a fantasy landscape, but I wanted to capture this sort of cool yellow that the sky was. This is from a photo that I keep pulling out because it has a lot of what I need to work on, which is like shadows on white, colors, how to blur the background, stuff like that. So you'll see this reproduced over and over in my sketchbooks because I just keep, I have a little stack of photos, and when I can't think of something or when I just only have 45 minutes, I grab any photo and just do it. This was from is this the one? Yeah, this one I did as colored pencil on location in Santa Fe, and I didn't like it. And then the next morning, with a cup of coffee, I sat down and painted gouache over it and added pen. I didn't really like the pen so much. It didn't draw very well over the gouache, but I feel like I saved the painting. And then I thought for the month of May, I would try to capture more clothing and self-portraits, and I was really into it for a couple of days, and then I didn't like doing it anymore because it was a little too confining. So this is what I was wearing that day, and then on another day, so this was on the 1st, and a couple days later, this was what I took a photo using my watch timer iPhone thing so that I, clicked the timer and then stood and waited for it to take the photo. So, I set up my phone, leaned against something. So I tried for a couple of days. This is from a photo. These are all from photos, actually. My husband said I made my legs too long, but I kind of like the way I look with long legs. And then here, I was working on how to not be so stuck on color and to try doing the same church from Santa Fe in different colors. I ended up painting this one. And then this was another timer thing. And my dog, I was dressed to go walk the dogs, and so Axel knew and was waiting for me to finish taking the picture, so I walked them and then I came back and painted it. This was painted from a still life in my dining room, and I don't know if you can see, but I used copper paint. It was kind of cool, gouache. So you can see it sort of sparkles through. That was fun. Here's another photo that I just keep repainting. So I suggest that if you have just a nice photo of a still life, print it out and keep it with your painting stuff so that if you can't find something to paint, you just want to try some new supplies or a new technique. I think I've been painting this one for a couple of years, and I keep discovering new things about it. And then, I don't know what that is. I think it's paint from here. Some fake blossoms, the silk ones that you get at Michael's. I have a photo and it's in my stack of stuff. But I think this was when I was feeling really uninspired and I felt like my gouaches were all getting really heavy and thick. So I wanted to do something that felt a little more watercolory and light. So I used only 2 or 3 colors on this one. I should have dated this one, but I think I did this one before this one because I end up doing the right-hand page a lot of times and then covering it and then filling in the left-hand page. This was done en plein air at the cheese importer restaurant or store in Longmont, Colorado, and they have a beautiful back deck, back patio, and these were nasturtiums and some other flowers. And I didn't quite get the dimensions right, but that's okay. Here's a fairly recent one that I did at the gardens in Fort Collins. It got really messy at one point, and I just kept layering and layering until I finally was happy with it. And what I really like is the scribbly, because these were red peony or pink peonies in the background. They were sort of expired and done, and they were at that sort of wrinkly, dried up looking stage. And so the scribbling really sort of captured that behind the freshness of these white ones that were just starting to open. And so that was an interesting thing. And then also I thought I packed blue, but I didn't have any blue. And the blue sky was reflecting on the shiny leaves, and I didn't have a way to show that. And then I pulled out my sort of aqua colored pencil, and I really like that. Now I feel like the painting wouldn't be the same without them. So that surprising pop of color ends up being my favorite part. So sometimes it's nice to be stuck in a situation. This was a second attempt at the cactus gardens in Fort Collins. The first one I did was in another book, which has a big rock in the front and cactus around it. And I think I was trying too hard to make it look accurate and realistic. And this one I decided to do my impression of these penstemon and cactus and then whatever these were. I think this was an ice plant. And it was more fun. I don't know if I like the painting better, but it was more fun to capture an impression of something than to feel tied to realism. A little side note, I wanted to say that my number one goal is to have fun while painting or drawing, and my second goal is to enjoy the final piece. So those are my two goals. Those are the two things I'm going for. This one I just did this week. This was from real life. I set up a chair and it got so hot. It was like 95 degrees. I was dripping sweat. That's not what this is. This is paint left over from that. And this one also got to a really messy stage, and then I kind of brought it back. And this was a new thing. Let's see if I have them. I have ink pencils now. It's ink that turns permanent. You draw with it like colored pencil, but as soon as you hit it with water, it turns to permanent ink. So I actually used my brush and touched the tip and added the white, and then I got my brush really wet and did it like this, and then flicked a little bit more white paint on top, white ink. So I've been looking for some different ways to add lines and white details on top of gouache. So not crazy about this. I kept adding the path in the back, but I finally got so hot I had to leave. But if I was staying, I think I would have added the path back in, because it was sort of a creamy sand colored path that went this way, and I think it would break up this drawing. I mean, break up the painting just right. And then this was, I had all my art supplies. I got home and I had a little bit of time before I needed to do anything, so I thought I'd do the view from my deck. And it also got really hot and there were bugs and I was just getting annoyed. But if you've seen any of my Instagram pictures, you can see my neighbor's barn that's sort of always there, the ubiquitous barn. And so knowing where I live, then you automatically put the rest into place. Like, oh yeah, that's that tree that's always in every photo, and that's that road. That's the road that's always in every photo. So I captured it, but what I wanted was to capture the way that the mountains are gradients going back. But when you're working in the bright sunlight with the sun shining on your page and it's bright out, it's hard to work subtle. So what I could have done is waited and gone inside, wait for my eyes to get used to being inside, and then do this part indoors, because I think this did capture it, but I think I went too dark on this. And that's where I am with this. I still have a few more pages left. This one was inspired, this sketchbook was inspired by, I'll have to put her name up here, Debbie Draws, or Draw with Debbie or something. She did a drawing and light gouache on brown paper, and I realized, oh my gosh, I've only been working on white paper, so I need some colored paper. And I went through my stuff and I realized the only colored paper I have is pastel paper. And pastel paper is, it has the tiniest bit of texture. Let's see if I don't know if you can see. It has texture. Sorry, so because I take it outside, it ends up with paint and stuff. And it has a little bit of texture, and then on the other side, it has a slightly different texture. But real pastel paper has sand on it. It's called sanded. So this is unsanded pastel paper from a pad that I bought. I had in my supplies. And so I have a number of different colors in here. I made this book myself. I just used cardboard for the cover. I went through my stickers and I found a random one that to remind me which is the front, because that's always a problem. And then I ended up with kind of the wrong number of pages. Each of these bundles of paper is called a signature. And I ended up with kind of the wrong number of pages. So I added scrapbooking paper to make up two of the papers in a signature. And then here's some extra paper. This is just newsprint that I would use to lay on top of something that's smudgy or still wet. And then this is a little more white watercolor paper in case I need to swatch something, or if I decide I need something with no tooth, which means smooth. So I made a pocket. And then here I did a color swatch, and I decided I didn't want it in here. So I cut it using a decorative scissors, deco scissors. Cut it out, and it's in a different book now. So I have all these different colors, and I'll sit and look at the scene and decide which color paper I'm going to use. And I actually don't know what I did, so I have to go through this one page at a time. And I made it so that the same tooth faces each other. So this is sort of the more rough tooth, and this is more of the fine tooth. So here I wrote, leave paper here because pastel. So I did this in dry pastel or soft pastel. And I also used a brush with water, and and I used colored pencil, or maybe I used pastel pencils. But when you take regular dry pastels, the super soft kind, the kind that crumbles in your hands, and you use water, you can basically turn it into gouache. So anyway, that's a cool effect. It's fun, but it's messy, as you can see. So it's always bring a little extra paper to use to protect your stuff. Here's a painting of a rock. I was trying to capture, I don't know, I got really tight, meaning I got really into the details before I got into the Gestalt of the whole thing. Okay, I'm back. I had to look up Gestalt. I think because it starts with G-E, I was thinking it was Gestalt, but it's kind of like GIF and GIF, I think. You get one pronunciation locked in your head. Anyway, it's GIF because that's the guy who came up with that acronym. He said to say it as GIF, so I say it as GIF, but it's also Gestalt, not Gestalt. So anyway, Gestalt means to capture kind of the whole feeling of the whole piece, the general idea. And I missed that. I went right into the details and I got frustrated. So I think what I ended up doing for the time we spent there was I just kept working with different transparencies and glazes to capture the rock. So I had to sort of let this one go. And I think I even continued working on it at home and just found myself frustrated. Oh, I did a second one at home, larger. And although I did a much better job at capturing the gravel, I still didn't really get the Gestalt, I almost said Gestalt again, of this. So maybe it was composition, maybe it was that there were too many things to work on, but this is one of those photos I have that I now can keep going back and try to improve some of my skills. I don't know what else is in here. Kind of have to go through each color. So this is a photo of my mother. So you have to turn your head. That I keep thinking would be a really good Toulouse-Lautrec style painting. So I'm just going to keep painting this one of my mother until I can figure out how to simplify it enough to get the look that I want. I just like the composition. My dad took the photo. He's a really good photographer. This is before I was born. I was born in 1964, so it's an old photo. This is a plant that I have. It's a photo of a plant. And so I was just playing. I did a little bit of, you take a stiff brush and you dip it in the color and then you spatter. I think this one I tried doing color first, then pencil, then paint, and then, so I was just trying new techniques. These are my new Inktense pencils. They act like colored pencils, but they're actually ink, permanent ink, once they get wet. So this is my first attempt at them, and I colored with them and got them wet, and I filled the whole page. First I did a pencil drawing, then I did ink drawing, Then I erased the pencil, and then I filled in the background. Then I went in and colored each individual thing with sometimes with the Inktense and sometimes with something else. And I made it sort of a journal page. This is from a plein air session. I tend to make things too big. I tend to take the subject and enlarge it. It might be because I have retinopathy and I automatically have kind of a warped view, because one of my eyes, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I won't tell you all that, but I have a hard time judging how big or small to make things. So I did do a larger version of this where I made things the correct size. I actually did measuring and stuff, and I like it better. Although when you're doing plein air, or when I'm doing plein air into a sketchbook, it's more like I'm doing a study of the area. So I did this and I learned some things so that then when I went to do the larger painting, I was already acquainted with how the light was on the blue building and how to deal with like this corner that, you know, how to do the flag, things like that. Flagpole, I mean. So this is white paper. Let's see if I did anything else on white. Oh, and then I did this one just yesterday. I also got some wax pastels, which are really just highfalutin crayons. They blend really nicely into each other. You can hit them with turpentine or, I guess, mineral spirits, but they immediately do not, unless you leave a little, they had a little dot here. And when I rubbed it, it went across the page, but I think I'm going to take this on my next plein air and do, I really like pastels, but pastels are really messy. And so I think wax pastels might be my plein air option because the colors are really vibrant and it doesn't smudge. It travels nicely. And then I also thought I'd do a color chart of my ink pencils that I just showed you. And I've been wanting to do tarot cards. So I found a public domain version of the old originals and I just copied it. Copied this one just because I like the design. I don't think I've done anything in the gray. I don't think the weather has called for gray yet. I've noticed that when you work on gray paper, it subdues the colors. So here's a blue one from the same day at the marina. And I only wish that I hadn't outlined the little floaty things that are on the side of the boat. Otherwise, I like this. And so this is sort of, I think this is becoming my style where I do really loose watery gouache and then I draw on top. And I draw these details in. And I could have chosen a better color for this fence and back to make it go back farther, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with this. This is, usually I only like what I've done until I do something new. And I still like that one, so that's a good sign. I think that's it for this book. So in the last one, the one that with the sticker that says Hotel Sudan on the front, I told you that Debbie Draws did brown paper drawing with gouache, and I really wanted to try that. And I went through my stuff and couldn't find any brown paper, but I did find some online and I bought it. And it's just like a brown paper bag, huge sheets of it. And I'll put the name here and in the description. And so what I did was I took one large sheet, I folded it up and cut it up, and I just took a piece of, I think this is basic gray, scrapbooking paper, and I stitched it, and I made myself a little mini book because I think I need to do more of this sort of rough throwaway style. Not that I'm going to throw this away, but not feel so attached and precious about everything. And I just am flipping to a random page. I'm not doing it consecutively. So this was from the gardens, and what I like, the gardens on Spring Creek in Fort Collins, I like about brown paper is it's a middle gray, it's a middle color, so you can go lighter or go darker and then leave the middle color, which is nice. I really like that. And then this one is actually, it matches the colors of the photo pretty well, but I probably could have gone a little darker in the background. I found this photo online. I wrote to the photographer and asked if I could use it for this purpose, and I also asked if, when I post it, if I can tag him. So I did all those things, and that's what you should do. This is from a photo that my dad took of the McClellans from the 60s. I really liked her dress, and I wanted to, it was a black and white photo, but I wanted to paint it in color. I didn't quite capture the faces accurately, but that's okay. This was a, let's see, I did like 5 different paintings of the same photograph, and I just wanted to see if I could reduce details, and I feel pretty good about this one. I like these little things, like adding this in pencil. It's fun. You know, like this, or the little thing that you roll the. So I like little details, but I didn't need to draw every brick, and there's a whole bunch of plants here, and there were a lot more chairs. And then there was a fence here, and there were bushes here, and clouds in the sky, and there was stuff in the windows. So I think part of the work that I need to do is learning what to keep. And then this, what was I doing? Oh, I just really wanted to do white on, I really wanted to draw the shirt that I was wearing, and the colors really got away from me. This is from a photograph. It's just really, I look terrible, but I did a good job with the shirt. It really does look like the shirt that I was wearing, striped overalls. And then I had some extra colors in the pan, so I did a really goofy, loose version, and with a pink nose, because I do actually wear zinc on my nose when I'm in the garden. So I had to zoom out for this one because it's larger. This book is made by koval, or koval, K-O-V-A-L. You can see them on Instagram. This is kind of a cream-colored toothy paper. It's cold press watercolor paper, and I've only just started using it. The first painting I did, so first of all, you know, when you work larger, it takes more time. So it's not as good for travel, you know, for travel journaling or plein air. You could also take the page and use washi tape and block off a couple of sections. If you still wanted to bring the book, it's a nice big book, and it's got a nice hardcover, which is vegan, by the way, and but still sort of block off. So I could potentially have 4 or even more plein air painting sections here and not feel rushed. A lot of times you save the important details to the end, and then you're too hot, or the light has changed, or you have to go and you don't get a chance to add them. So so remember that if your book is too big, that you can break the pages down. This one I did at home after, I think it was the day after I did a plein air on location, and I like this. I was trying to work on things like working thick with gouache, like it's oil paint, trying to be impressionistic. I didn't do that well. I was trying to add, make the front more yellow than the back and keep the stuff in the back more blue. I wanted to have the water feel like a gradient from a warm blue into this green. That did pretty well. I wanted to shrink everything down and be sort of impressionistic and gestural, visible brush strokes. Let's see what else. If you saw the video that I just did of, okay, well, the dogs just went after a bird, so I thought I'd use this opportunity. So this is the same thing. This one I did while I was there, and everything, I made everything kind of large, which I tend to do, and I know that about myself, and I don't really like it. I think it's because in the past, I've been a caricature artist and an illustrator, and so I tend to make the central object larger than it really is. So I had to deliberately just really decide I wasn't going to do that, and I made this more accurately sized, if that makes sense. And and also mellowed the colors a bit. So this is plein air, sitting on the ground, bugs flying around, talking to friends who came with, and eating. And this is quiet in my studio. I usually watch Criminal Minds or Law and Order because it's the perfect distraction if I need to look up for a minute or two. So same location, took a photo, came home and did this. So you can see the difference. You probably can still tell it's me. Or maybe it looks like two different similar people on the same day. So one thing that I really tried to do on this one was to work on the color from here to here, like a gradient, because I've decided that gradients are satisfying to look at. And by gradient, I mean the same object that has a color transition from one color to another color. And then I also tried to relax on some of these details in the back. Here I drew the buildings in and immediately hated it. Whoops, almost spilled my coffee. And here I let it go. And I also made the flags really tiny. Here I did them more like an illustrator. So I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting to look at the same thing. So. And then I don't really have a lot in this book because I've only just started using it. It has a yellow tone to it and tooth. So I was resistant. Now I like it. And super thick pages, just yummy. So this is the same photograph of my mother that I keep working on. Toulouse-Lautrec is my favorite painter or artist, and I want to figure out a way to turn this into a large painting that looks like a Toulouse-Lautrec. And then right now the iris are in bloom. This is from a photograph. And I just love how they're very like fabric-y. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think iris are just amazing. And so I've worked on this for a couple of days and I finally let it go yesterday. I decided I'm done. Because at some point, gouache gets so thick that you can't work on it anymore. And I was starting to get to that point in a couple of places. Because it's like kind of like chalk. It's like wet chalk. At some point, it just can't hold anymore. It starts to almost sort of crack. And this one I did gouache with no pencil, but I did use the ink pencils as the background color. So these are ink. If you've already watched the rest of this video, sorry, I'm going to just reiterate. These are colored pencils until you hit them with water. As soon as they get wet, they become permanent ink, and they're really vibrant. And I love background color. So I sort of colored red and then purple, and you can see the purple up here, kind of an indigo, red, and kind of a yellow down here, orange. So I did the whole page, then I got it wet, went away for a little bit for it to dry, came back and then painted on top. And I think it's kind of cool how it shows through. And that's as much as I have in this book. But I want to plug Koval again, and make sure that you order the paper that you like, or challenge yourself and order something that you don't like. So I didn't think I liked this, but I do now. So I'm glad I got the wrong thing, or I don't know if I ordered the wrong thing or they sent the wrong thing, but it's working for me now. And then the last sketchbook that I'm going to show you, I have, as many of us artists do, I have a stack of just regular old sketchbooks, the kind that you grab at Michael's when they're $1 each. It's, thicker paper. So last time I worked on this one was 2019, and I just use it for whatever. But the point is, I'm using this for things that I want to test, try. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I bring it with me for sketching. So this is sort of the non-precious, if that makes sense. These are the ones that I feel they're, I don't know, kind of like worn out sneakers. Like I feel super comfortable working in here. I don't need to fill the page. I can do my thumbnails. So here's that one of my mother that I keep redoing. Also, like the weather was really bad one day and I took this down into the living room and drew out the living room window with limited pencils, just to make sure, because I've been trying to do art every day. So carrying this around, this is a photo that of some roses that I just keep at hand and do them when I probably only had 10 minutes and these were the colors that were in the pan left over from something else. So I squirt them with a mister and I just sort of do it. This was from a photo. This was from a photo. This was from real life at the gardens. I was practicing drawing the penstemons. This was from the marina. I really liked the boats, and some of the boats were zipping by, so I would draw them quickly when they came by. This one, okay, so I want to plug, okay. So, I get this like neck spasm and I took a bunch of pain pills and was sitting on my couch, but I had my art supplies right next to me and this book. And so, I thought I'd try a water brush pen thing. What do you call it? Well, anyway, you know what I mean. And I was so amazed. I was amazed at how little water it took to paint. So I didn't want to go upstairs. I didn't want to leave the couch. So I just really roughly drew with colored pencils. And then I had my pan that I had used earlier at the marina. So I still had colors sitting on the pan. And I just really gently painted. And so that's I want to make a case for these. I've had people give these to me. I've had one for a really long time. And I used it this one time and I'm so excited that immediately that day I went on Amazon and bought 3 more. And so that I can have them everywhere because it's amazing. And all you need to do is refill this. You don't need to always have a cup of water, especially when you're doing light, loose work like this. So I wanted to make a plug for the water brush pens or whatever they're called. That's it. I have other sketchbooks like this that are just plain paper. And so you really should have some, not junk, but your worn out tennis shoe, the sweatshirt with the holes in it. You need to have something like this. So thank you for sitting with me through all of these sketchbooks. And I hope it has inspired you to start a sketchbook. And I'll show you again next time when I have more to show you. Thanks for watching.